Captain Hyunwoo Kim stepped off the transport shuttle and onto Nexus Station. The massive space station stretched out in all directions around him. Metal walkways connected different sections that seemed to go on forever. Bright lights from hundreds of shops and businesses lit up the wide corridors. This was his first time seeing so many different alien species in one place. Tall creatures with blue skin walked past him talking in clicking sounds. Short beings covered in fur pushed floating carts full of strange goods. Flying creatures with multiple wings soared overhead through the open spaces between levels. Hyunwoo wore his dress uniform with pride. The dark blue fabric had Earth Defense Force patches on both shoulders. His rank insignia gleamed under the station lights. At 5'9" tall, he was average height for a human. His black hair was cut short in military style. His dark eyes took in everything around him with careful attention. Behind him walked Ambassador Ji-Hai Park and 2 other diplomats from Earth. They all looked nervous. This was humanity's first official visit to meet with the Galactic Federation. Earth had only been discovered by alien civilizations 6 months ago. Everything depended on making a good first impression. "Stay close and remember your training," Hyunwoo told the younger Marine walking beside him. Corporal Dae-ho Lee nodded and adjusted his rifle strap. Both men carried standard Earth weapons, which looked simple compared to the energy weapons they saw other soldiers carrying. They made their way toward the central plaza. The area was huge, with a domed ceiling that showed stars outside. Hundreds of beings from different worlds gathered here to do business or just meet with friends. The noise was incredible. Dozens of languages mixed together in a constant buzz of conversation. Ambassador Park pointed toward a raised platform in the center of the plaza. "That's where we're supposed to meet the Federation representatives," she said. Her voice showed her nervousness. As they walked closer, Hyunwoo noticed other beings stopping to stare at them. Some pointed and whispered to their companions. A few took pictures with devices he didn't recognize. Humans were still a curiosity in this part of the galaxy. "Look at the little ones," someone said in accented but understandable English. "Are those the new species we heard about?" A group of tall reptilian creatures approached them. The leader stood nearly 7 feet tall. His scales were black like polished stone. Bright amber eyes looked down at the human group. Forearms ending in sharp claws hung at his sides. A military uniform with many medals covered his chest. "You must be the humans," the creature said. His voice was deep and rough. "I am Commander Vextar of the Rylonian Imperial Guard." He looked them up and down like a teacher examining students. "So these are Earth's finest warriors." Hyunwoo stepped forward and saluted properly. "Captain Hyunwoo Kim, Earth Defense Force Marines." "It's an honor to meet you, Commander," Vextar laughed. The sound was harsh and loud. Other aliens in the area turned to watch. "Honor? You think there is honor in meeting children who play at being soldiers?" More reptilian beings gathered around their commander. They all wore similar uniforms and carried weapons that glowed with internal energy. Their eyes showed the same amusement as their leader. "Tell me, little human," Vextar continued, "what wars has your species won? What enemies have you defeated among the stars?" "Earth has known many conflicts," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "Our people have fought to defend freedom and protect the innocent for thousands of years. Against other humans," Vextar said with another laugh. "Fighting your own kind with primitive weapons. The Rylonian Empire has conquered 17 star systems. We have defeated species with technology your people cannot imagine." The crowd around them grew larger. Beings from many different worlds stopped to watch the confrontation. Some held up recording devices. Hyunwoo felt heat rise in his cheeks but kept his expression neutral. Vextar reached out and tapped Hyunwoo's rifle with one claw. "Is this your weapon? It fires solid projectiles, doesn't it? Like throwing rocks." He turned to address the crowd. "They use gunpowder and metal bullets while real warriors carry plasma cannons." One of the other Rylonians stepped forward. He carried a rifle that hummed with energy. Blue light pulsed along its length. "Commander, should I demonstrate the difference?" "No need, Lieutenant," Vextar said. "But perhaps our new friends would like to see what real strength looks like." The commander walked over to a metal support beam near a shop entrance. The beam was as thick as a man's waist and made of some kind of alien alloy. Vextar wrapped his forearms around it. His muscles bulged under his scales. With a grinding sound of metal, the beam began to bend. The crowd gasped and cheered. In seconds, Vextar had twisted the support beam into a pretzel shape. He tossed it aside where it landed with a loud crash. "Your species sends children to play soldier," Vextar said. turning back to Hyun-woo. Perhaps you should return to your little blue world before real warriors show you your place in the universe. The alien crowd laughed and applauded. Some made comments in languages Hyun-woo couldn't understand, but their tone made the meaning clear. He felt Corporal Lee tense beside him. The younger Marine's hand moved toward his sidearm. Hyun-woo caught Lee's eye and shook his head slightly. Starting a fight here would destroy any chance Earth had of joining the Federation. He looked back at Vextar and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Strength comes in many forms, Commander. Sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when not to fight. Wisdom from a child, Vextar said mockingly. How touching. I'm sure the enemies of the Federation will be impressed by your philosophy when they're burning your cities. Ambassador Park stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Hyun-woo's arm. Captain, we should proceed to our meeting. I'm sure Commander Vextar has important duties to attend to as well. Vextar waved dismissively. Yes, run along to your meeting. Try not to embarrass yourselves too badly. The galaxy is watching. As the human delegation walked away, the laughter of the crowd followed them. Hyun-woo kept his back straight and his pace steady, but inside anger burned like a flame, not just at the insults but at the humiliation in front of so many witnesses. Sir, Corporal Lee whispered. That was hard to take. Part of the job, Hyun-woo replied quietly, but someday we'll show them what Marines are really made of. Behind them, Vextar continued entertaining the crowd with stories of human weakness. He had no idea that his mockery would soon return to haunt him in ways he couldn't imagine. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliation at Nexus Station. Captain Hyun-woo Kim now stood aboard the Federation flagship Eternal Dominion. The massive warship was larger than any human-built vessel. Its corridors could fit Earth's biggest battleships inside them with room to spare. Emergency meetings had been called every day for the past week. Reports came in from across the galaxy that made even the strongest alien warriors look worried. Something was attacking Federation outposts along the Outer Rim territories. Entire fleets had gone silent without sending any distress signals. Hyun-woo walked down the main corridor toward the war room. His boots echoed on the metal deck. Other beings moved past him with urgent purpose. Blue-skinned Centauri officers carried data tablets full of battle reports. Six-legged Corvin engineers discussed shield modifications in their buzzing language. None of them paid much attention to the human Marine. After the incident with Commander Vextar, word had spread quickly about Earth's weak military forces. Most Federation species now saw humans as harmless primitives who had somehow stumbled onto space travel. The war room doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, dozens of alien commanders sat around a circular table that floated in the center of the room. Holographic displays showed star maps with red markers indicating lost colonies and missing ships. Admiral Theknos, a massive creature with tentacles instead of arms, gestured at the displays. His species had commanded Federation fleets for over 2,000 years. The attacks follow no pattern we can understand, he said in his booming voice. Our best tacticians cannot predict where they will strike next. The insect-like being clicked its mandibles nervously. 17 colonies have gone dark in the past month. That's over 40 million beings unaccounted for. We don't even know if they're dead or captured. The enemy uses tactics we've never seen before, added a crystalline creature whose body sparkled under the room's lights. They disable our communications first, then destroy our sensor arrays. By the time rescue ships arrive, nothing remains but empty space. Commander Vextar sat near the head of the table. His black scales gleamed under the bright lights. Behind him stood several other Rylonian officers, all looking grim. The reptilian warriors had lost 3 major battle groups to these mysterious attacks. Your Majesty, Admiral Theknos said, addressing the largest Rylonian at the table. Have your scouts discovered anything useful about these attackers? King Zolthak was even more impressive than Commander Vextar. The reptilian monarch stood 8 feet tall and carried scars from 100 battles across his scaled hide. His forearms were thick with muscle, and his amber eyes held the wisdom of centuries. My forces have found traces of unknown technology, the king replied. His voice was deep and commanding. Energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Ships that seem to be part organic, part machine. Whoever they are, they're not from any known civilization. Murmurs of concern rippled around the table. The Federation had mapped most of the galaxy over thousands of years. Finding a completely unknown enemy was both shocking and terrifying. We need to send reconnaissance forces. suggested a bird-like alien with bright feathers. Small, fast ships that can investigate without engaging in combat. I volunteer the Rylonian Third Fleet for this mission, Commander Vextar said, standing up. My warriors are not afraid of unknown enemies. King Zolthak nodded approvingly at his subordinate's courage. The Third Fleet will gather intelligence while our main forces prepare defensive positions. Admiral Teknos was about to agree when another voice spoke up from the back of the room. Perhaps this mission requires a different approach. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Ambassador Ji-Hai Park had been sitting quietly with the other diplomatic observers. Now she stood and walked toward the table with Captain Hyunwoo following behind her. Commander Vextar's eyes narrowed with amusement. The humans wish to contribute to our war planning? How generous. Our military advisors have studied the attack patterns, Ambassador Park said calmly. We believe stealth and careful observation might be more effective than sending large fleets. Stealth? Vextar laughed harshly. From the species that uses exploding powder in their weapons? What could you possibly teach us about modern warfare? King Zolthak held up one massive hand for silence. Let the humans speak. All perspectives may be valuable in these dark times. Hyunwoo stepped forward and activated a small holographic projector. Images appeared showing the locations of all the attacks. The enemy strikes hardest at targets that send out the strongest sensor signals. They seem to detect and destroy anything with advanced energy signatures first. An obvious tactical choice, Vexitar said dismissively. Disable enemy sensors and communications. Any competent commander would do the same. But they ignore escape pods and small civilian craft, Hyunwoo continued. Ships with minimal energy output slip past their detection. Our analysis suggests they're calibrated to target high-technology threats. A few alien commanders leaned forward with interest. The logic was sound, even if it came from a primitive human. What are you suggesting? Admiral Teknos asked. Send a small reconnaissance force using older technology, Hyunwoo explained. Ships and equipment that produce lower energy signatures. They might be able to investigate without triggering enemy attention. The room fell silent as the assembled commanders considered this idea. It was unconventional, but it made sense given what they knew about the attacks. Commander Vextar stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You want us to abandon our advanced weapons and sensors to sneak around like scared younglings? The Rylonian Empire did not conquer 17 star systems by hiding from enemies. No one is asking you to hide, Hyunwoo said respectfully, but gathering intelligence requires different skills than winning battles. Vextar's eyes blazed with anger. Are you questioning our intelligence capabilities, human? My people were exploring the galaxy when your species was still living in caves. That's not what I meant, Commander. I'm simply suggesting that sometimes unconventional approaches can be effective. Unconventional, Vextar repeated mockingly. He turned to address the other commanders. Perhaps we should test this human theory. Send Earth's toy soldiers to investigate these attacks. Let them prove their unconventional methods work. Several aliens chuckled at the suggestion. The idea of sending humans on a dangerous reconnaissance mission seemed like an elaborate joke. But King Zolthak was not laughing. The old warrior studied Hyunwoo with calculating eyes. You would volunteer for such a mission? Even knowing that every ship we've sent has disappeared? Yes, Your Majesty, Hyunwoo replied without hesitation. My unit is trained for dangerous assignments. If our equipment and tactics can help gather the intelligence the Federation needs, we're ready to serve. Ambassador Park looked alarmed. Captain Kim, I'm not sure that's wise. The diplomatic mission was supposed to be peaceful. With respect, Ambassador, peace won't matter if these attackers destroy the Federation. Someone needs to find out what we're facing. Commander Vextar smiled coldly. How noble. The little human wants to play hero. He looked around the table. I support this proposal. Let the humans prove they deserve to breathe the same air as true warriors. Send them to investigate the enemy. And when they fail, he added quietly, we can focus on real solutions to this crisis. King Zolthak considered the proposal carefully. Using humans as expendable scouts would risk very little, while potentially gaining valuable information. If they succeeded, the Federation would benefit. If they failed, nothing of value would be lost. Very well, the king decided. Captain Kim, you and your unit will investigate the most recent attack site. Gather whatever intelligence you can and report back. The Federation will provide you with a suitable vessel. Admiral Teknos nodded agreement. We'll assign you a scout ship with minimal energy output. As you suggested, Hyunwoo saluted properly. Thank you, Your Majesty. We won't let the Federation down. As the meeting broke up, Commander Vextar approached Hyunwoo with a mocking smile. I do hope you survive long enough to send at least one report, Captain. It would be such a shame if you disappeared before proving how useless human military thinking really is. Hyunwoo met the alien's gaze steadily. We'll do our job, Commander. That's what Marines are trained for. Vextar laughed and walked away with his fellow Rylonians. None of them noticed the quiet determination in the human captain's eyes. They had no idea that their mockery was about to lead them into the most dangerous situation of their lives. The scout ship Ranger drifted silently through the debris field that had once been the Federation Third Fleet. Captain Hyunwoo. Kim stared out the viewport at the twisted remains of 30 warships floating in the darkness of space. Each vessel had been larger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever built. Now they were nothing but scrap, metal and frozen atmosphere. Sensors show no life signs anywhere. In the field, reported Sergeant Dae-ho Lee from the pilot's seat. His voice was quiet and tense. Whatever happened here, it happened fast. Corporal So-young Choi worked at the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to piece together the final moments of the fleet. I'm picking up fragments of distress signals. Most were cut off mid-transmission. Private Taemin Park sat at the weapons console, though their small ship carried only basic defensive systems. His young face showed the strain of seeing so much destruction. Sir, how could anyone destroy this many ships so quickly? The Third Fleet had some of the best warriors in the galaxy. Hyunwoo studied the wreckage carefully. The Federation had given them an old scout vessel with minimal energy output, just as he had suggested. The ship's simple systems and low power signature had allowed them to approach the battle site without triggering any automated defenses or enemy sensors. There, he said, pointing at a massive structure floating among the destroyed ships. That research station is still intact. We need to investigate. The Zerian Prime Research Facility was huge, easily the size of a small city. Its white hull showed scorch marks and impact damage, but the basic structure remained sound. Docking bays gaped open like dark mouths in the station's side. Sergeant Lee guided their ship toward one of the smaller airlocks. Power readings show minimal energy output. Emergency systems only. Whatever crew was aboard, they're either dead or gone. Atmosphere is stable in most sections, Corporal Choi added. We should be able to move around without environmental suits. They docked carefully and entered the station through an auxiliary airlock. The corridors inside were dark except for dim emergency lighting. Their boots echoed in the empty passages as they made their way toward the command center. Bodies lay scattered throughout the facility. Aliens from a dozen different species had died where they stood. But something was wrong with the scene. The bodies were arranged in strange patterns, almost like they had been placed deliberately. This isn't random, Hyunwoo said, kneeling beside a group of Zentari scientists. Someone moved these bodies after they died. Look at how they're positioned. Private Park swallowed hard as he examined another cluster of corpses. It's like they were arranged for some kind of ceremony. Who would do something like this? They reached the main command center and found even more disturbing evidence. Computer terminals had been stripped of their advanced components. Weapon systems had been torn apart and removed. Even the medical equipment in the station's hospital had been harvested for parts. They took everything, Sergeant Lee observed. All the high-tech equipment is gone, but they left the basic systems running. Corporal Choi found a working terminal and began accessing the station's security records. I'm pulling up surveillance footage from the attack. This might tell us what happened. The holographic display flickered to life, showing recorded images from the station's final hours. At first, everything appeared normal. Scientists worked at their stations while security officers patrolled the corridors. Then alarms began flashing throughout the facility. On the screen, they watched as the attacking ships appeared. The vessels were unlike anything in Federation databases. They looked organic, with curved hulls that pulsed like living tissue. Mechanical components jutted from their surfaces at random angles, as if they had been grown rather than built. What are those things? Private Park whispered. The organic ships moved with impossible coordination, swarming around the Federation fleet like a pack of hunting animals. Energy weapons that seemed to be part of the ships themselves tore into the defending vessels. But the most horrifying part was what happened next. As each Federation ship was destroyed, The organic vessels extended tentacle-like appendages to collect the wreckage. They absorbed pieces of hull plating, weapon systems, and even the bodies of dead crew members. The attacking ships grew larger and more complex as they consumed their victims. "They're feeding," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Those ships are alive somehow, and they're eating everything they destroy." The security footage continued, showing the attackers boarding the research station. The beings that emerged from the organic ships were nightmarish combinations of flesh and machinery. They moved on multiple legs that ended in sharp claws. Mechanical arms extended from their bodies, each equipped with different tools for cutting and harvesting. "The files call them devourers," Corporal Choi reported, reading from a database entry that appeared on her screen. "They're listed as an extinct species. The Federation thought they were destroyed thousands of years ago." The recording showed the devourers systematically killing the station's crew and arranging their bodies in ritual patterns. They stripped away every piece of advanced technology they could find. The creatures seemed to study each device before consuming it, as if learning how it worked. "Look at this intelligence report," Sergeant Lee said, accessing another terminal. "They've been watching Federation forces for years, learning our tactics, studying our weaknesses. This wasn't a random attack." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine as he read the files. The Devourers had infiltrated Federation space long before anyone realized they still existed. They had been preparing for war while the galaxy's defenders remained completely unaware of the threat. "Sir, you need to see this," Private Park called from across the command center. He was standing before a large display that showed prisoner manifests. "They didn't kill everyone. They took captives." The list contained hundreds of names from various Federation species. High-ranking officers, skilled engineers, and political leaders had all been taken alive. Among the names, one entry made Hyunwoo's blood freeze. King Zolthak of Rilonia. Status, captured. Destination, Arena World Crucible. "They have the king," Corporal Choi breathed. "The most powerful military leader in the Federation is their prisoner." More data flowed across the screen, revealing the horrible truth about what happened to the captives. The Devourers had built a massive arena complex where they forced their prisoners to fight for entertainment. The organic creatures fed on suffering and fear as much as they consumed technology and flesh. According to these files, the arena is located in the heart of Devourer space, Sergeant Lee reported. It's heavily defended by their entire fleet. Hyunwoo studied the intelligence data carefully. The Federation needed to know about this threat, but they also needed to know that their greatest military leader was still alive. King Zolthak had been captured, not killed, which meant there might be a chance to rescue him. "We have to get this information back to Federation Command," he decided. "They need to know what they're really fighting." "What about the king?" Private Park asked. "And all those other prisoners?" Hyunwoo looked at his small team. They were just 4 Marines with basic equipment, facing an enemy that had destroyed the Federation's most powerful fleet. Any rescue attempt would be suicide. "First we report what we found," he said. "Then we figure out what comes next." As they prepared to leave the station, Corporal Choi discovered one final piece of intelligence that changed everything. Hidden in the deepest files was a detailed scan of the Devourer arena world. The massive structure had weaknesses, points where a small force might be able to penetrate its defenses. "Sir," she said quietly, "I think there might be a way to get them out." Hyunwoo studied the data, his mind already working on possibilities. Commander Vextar had mocked human military thinking. Soon he would discover just how dangerous that thinking could be when applied by Marines who never abandoned their own. The Devourers had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated the species they thought was too primitive to matter. Now 4 humans with determination and old-fashioned weapons were about to show the galaxy what Marines really meant when they said no one gets left behind. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood in the makeshift command center his team had built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The Kethmar system was perfect for hiding. Thousands of floating rocks provided cover while they planned their next move. Federation Command had ordered them to return immediately with their intelligence report. But Hyunwoo had other ideas. "This is insane." "Sir?" Sergeant Daeho Lee said as he studied the holographic display showing the Devourer arena world. "The Crucible is protected by their entire fleet. We're talking about hundreds of organic warships, each one bigger than our scout vessel. The arena itself was the size of a small moon. Its surface bristled with defensive weapons and sensor arrays. Biomechanical structures covered every square mile, pulsing with alien energy. Deep inside the complex, thousands of Federation prisoners fought and died for the entertainment of their captors. The mission parameters were clear, Corporal So-Young Choi added, though her voice lacked conviction. Gather intelligence and report back. We've done that. Now we should return to Federation space before they send search ships looking for us. Private Taemin Park was the youngest member of their team, but his technical skills were exceptional. He had spent the past 2 days analyzing every piece of data they had collected about the Devourers. The defensive grid around the Crucible is impressive, he admitted. But it has one major weakness. Hyun-woo looked up from the tactical displays he had been studying. Explain. Their sensors are calibrated to detect high-energy signatures, Park continued. Plasma weapons, advanced shields, faster than light drives. Anything with sophisticated technology triggers immediate response from their automated defenses. We already knew that, Lee pointed out. It's why we were able to approach the research station undetected. But they completely ignore low-energy contacts, Park said excitedly. Look at this data from the arena surveillance systems. Maintenance pods, supply shuttles, even debris floating in space. As long as the energy output stays below a certain threshold, their sensors don't even register it. Hyun-woo began to see the possibilities. You're suggesting we use their own blind spot against them? Exactly. Our ship produces minimal energy signatures compared to Federation vessels. If we strip away even more electronic systems and rely on manual controls, we might be able to penetrate their perimeter. Corporal Choi shook her head. Even if we could get inside, how would we locate the prisoners? The Crucible is massive. We could search for weeks without finding anyone. The intelligence files show prisoner holding areas near the main arena, Hyun-woo replied. King Zolthak and the other high-value captives are kept in a central facility. They're the main attractions for the Devourers' entertainment. The thought of the proud Rylonian monarch being forced to fight for alien amusement made his stomach turn. King Zolthak had shown more respect for humanity than most Federation leaders, despite Commander Vextar's mockery. The least they could do was try to return that courtesy. Sir, this isn't our mission, Sergeant Lee said firmly. We're Marines, not a rescue squad. Our orders are to gather intelligence. Our orders were to serve the Federation, Hyun-woo corrected. Rescuing their most important military leader serves that purpose. He activated a communications console and began recording a message. Ambassador Park, this is Captain Kim. We've discovered that King Zolthak and hundreds of other Federation citizens are being held prisoner by the enemy. We're going to attempt a rescue operation. If we don't return, make sure Command knows what we found about the Devourers. Sir, we should discuss this as a team, Choi protested. This isn't a decision you can make alone. Hyun-woo looked at each of his Marines in turn. You're right. This is voluntary. Anyone who wants to return to Federation space can take the shuttle and leave. I won't order anyone to come with me on what might be a suicide mission. The command center fell silent. Outside their asteroid hideout, the stars shone with cold light. Somewhere among those distant suns, an enemy was torturing Federation prisoners while preparing for war. Sergeant Lee was the first to speak. I've served with you for 3 years, Captain. You've never led us wrong yet. If you think we can pull this off, I'm with you. The technical challenges are significant, Private Park admitted, but not impossible. We'd need to modify our equipment extensively, strip away anything that produces electromagnetic emissions, go back to chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. Old-school Marine tactics, Corporal Choi said with a slight smile. I remember my grandfather talking about missions like this. Before energy weapons and advanced sensors, Marines had to rely on stealth and surprise. Hyun-woo felt a surge of pride in his team. They were scared, but they were willing to risk everything to save people who had shown them nothing but contempt. Then we start planning immediately. Park, I need you to design modifications for all our equipment. The young Marine nodded eagerly. Chemical explosives instead of plasma charges. Titanium steel armor plating instead of energy-resistant composites. Analog communication systems instead of digital networks. The Devourers won't expect that kind of primitive technology, Lee added. Their entire defensive philosophy is built around countering advanced Federation weapons. Over the next 18 hours, they worked frantically to prepare for the mission. Park stripped their weapons down to basic mechanical components. The plasma rifles were replaced with old-fashioned projectile weapons that used gunpowder and metal bullets. Their armor was modified to eliminate all electronic systems. I feel like a soldier from Earth's ancient wars. Choi commented as she tested her modified equipment. No targeting computers, no energy shields, no advanced sensors. That's exactly what we want, Hyunwoo replied. The Devourers have spent years learning to counter Federation technology. But they've never encountered 20th century military hardware. They also captured one of the Devourer scout ships that had been patrolling the outer system. Park spent hours studying its organic controls, learning how to pilot the alien vessel. The biomechanical interface was disturbing, but it would allow them to approach the crucible without triggering defensive systems. The ship responds to direct neural contact, he reported, looking pale after connecting with the alien technology. It's like touching a living mind. I can feel its hunger for flesh and metal. Can you control it? Hyunwoo asked. Yes, but it's not pleasant. The ship wants to hunt and feed. I have to constantly fight its instincts to attack anything we encounter. As they prepared to depart, Sergeant Lee pulled Hyunwoo aside for a private conversation. Sir, I need to ask. Why are we really doing this? King Zoltak isn't exactly our ally. His people have shown us nothing but disrespect. Hyunwoo considered the question carefully. Because it's the right thing to do. And because someone needs to show the galaxy what Marines stand for. We don't abandon people just because they don't like us. Even if it gets us killed. Especially then. The Federation needs to see that humanity brings something valuable to this alliance. Not advanced technology or superior firepower, but the willingness to sacrifice for others. Lee nodded slowly. Commander Vextar is going to be very surprised if we actually pull this off. If we pull this off, Vextar is going to owe us more than he can ever repay. His king's life is worth more than all the insults he's thrown at us. They climbed aboard the captured Devourer vessel, trying not to think about the organic walls that pulsed around them like living tissue. Park took his position at the navigation interface, his face tight with concentration as he made mental contact with the ship's biomechanical brain. Course set for the Crucible, he reported. The ship's instincts are helping us navigate through Devourer space. It knows exactly where to go. As they departed the asteroid field, Hyunwoo looked back at their hidden base. They were leaving behind everything familiar and safe to venture into the heart of enemy territory. 4 Marines with primitive weapons against an entire alien civilization. Sir, Corporal Choi said quietly. What if we're wrong? What if this doesn't work? Then we die knowing we tried to do the right thing, Hyunwoo replied. And maybe someone else will learn from our mistakes. The organic ship carried them deeper into Devourer space, guided by alien instincts toward the arena where Federation prisoners fought for their lives. Behind them, their message beacon continued broadcasting their discoveries to any Federation vessel that might receive it. Commander Vextar had challenged them to prove they deserved to breathe the same air as real warriors. Soon he would discover just how far humans were willing to go to earn that respect. The arena awaited, and with it the chance to show the galaxy what Marines truly meant when they promised to leave no one behind. The Crucible loomed before them like a metallic moon covered in writhing organic growth. Captain Hyunwoo Kim watched through the viewport as their captured Devourer ship approached the massive arena complex. Biomechanical structures pulsed across its surface, glowing with sickly yellow light. Defensive sensors are scanning us, Private Taman Park reported from the navigation interface. His face was pale from maintaining mental contact with the ship's alien consciousness. But they're reading us as a returning patrol vessel. We're clear to dock. Sergeant Dae-Ho Lee checked his modified weapon for the 10th time. The projectile rifle felt crude compared to modern plasma weapons, but its mechanical simplicity made it invisible to Devourer sensors. How many enemy ships are we looking at? Corporal So-Young Choi studied the tactical display. At least 200 organic vessels in defensive positions around the Crucible. Each one is bigger than our scout ship was, and those are just the ones we can see. The numbers were overwhelming, but Hyunwoo forced himself to focus on the mission. We stick to the plan. Get in, locate King Zoltak and the other prisoners, and get out before anyone realizes what happened. Their stolen ship guided itself toward a docking bay on the arena's lower levels. The opening was large enough to accommodate much bigger vessels, making their small craft look insignificant by comparison. Organic walls covered in pulsing veins surrounded them as they entered the structure. The ship's instincts are telling it to report to feeding chambers, Park said through gritted teeth. I'm having to fight to keep it moving toward the prisoner holding areas instead. They docked at a maintenance platform deep inside the complex. The artificial gravity felt wrong, constantly shifting as the living structure adjusted itself. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the curved walls. Atmosphere is breathable but contaminated with organic compounds, Choi reported, reading her environmental scanner. We should be able to operate without suits, but extended exposure might cause problems. They gathered their equipment and prepared to disembark. Each Marine carried chemical explosives, projectile weapons, and analog communication devices. Everything electronic had been stripped away or shielded to prevent detection. The corridors inside the crucible were nightmarish. Living tissue covered the walls, pulsing with alien circulation systems. Mechanical components jutted from the organic growth at random intervals. The air smelled of decay and metal. Which way to the main arena? Lee whispered as they reached an intersection. Park consulted a hand-drawn map based on their intelligence data. Central hub should be up 3 levels and toward the core. The prisoner cells are located nearby for easy access during events. They moved carefully through the organic passages, avoiding the larger corridors where Devourer guards might patrol. Strange sounds echoed through the structure: mechanical grinding, organic gurgling, and occasional screams from distant chambers. As they climbed higher, the sounds grew louder. A rhythmic pounding that seemed to shake the entire facility. Cheering voices in alien languages, the unmistakable noise of combat. There's an event happening now, Hyunwoo realized. The arena is active. They reached an observation window that looked down into the central arena. The sight below made them all stop in horror. The fighting pit was enormous, easily a quarter-mile across. Thousands of Devourer spectators filled the surrounding galleries, their biomechanical forms writhing with excitement. In the center of the arena, 2 figures fought with desperate fury. One was a tall Zentari officer, his blue skin covered in wounds. The other was unmistakably reptilian but smaller than most Rylonians they had seen. "Is that Commander Vextar?" Choi asked quietly. Hyunwoo studied the fighting figure more carefully. The reptilian warrior moved with skill and determination, but his movements were slower than they should be. Metal devices attached to his head and spine sparked with electrical current. Neural inhibitors, Park breathed. They're using pain to control him. Every time Vextar tried to avoid combat or show mercy to his opponent, the devices sent jolts of agony through his nervous system. The proud commander was being forced to fight against his will, his honor stripped away for alien entertainment. The Zentari officer was in worse condition. Multiple wounds covered his body and he could barely stand, but the neural inhibitors forced him to keep fighting, to endure pain that should have killed him hours ago. "We have to stop this," Lee said, his hand moving toward his weapon. "Not yet," Hyunwoo replied firmly. "We locate the king first, then figure out how to rescue everyone." They continued through the organic corridors, following their crude map toward the high-security prisoner cells. The sounds of the arena grew distant, but the memory of what they had seen burned in their minds. The detention area was heavily guarded. Devourer sentries moved through the passages on multiple legs, their mechanical arms equipped with various weapons. But the guards were focused on preventing escapes, not detecting infiltrators with primitive technology. "Cell Block 7 should contain the highest value prisoners," Park whispered, consulting his map again. They found a service tunnel that ran parallel to the main detention corridor. The organic walls were thinner here, allowing them to hear voices from the nearby cells. Most spoke in alien languages, but occasionally they heard Federation standard. "Tomorrow they want me to fight the Corvin engineer," someone said in a broken voice. "I don't know if I can kill another Federation citizen." "You don't have a choice," another voice replied. "The neural inhibitors will force you to fight whether you want to or not." Hyunwoo recognized the second voice immediately. King Zolthak of Rylonia, the most powerful military leader in the Federation, reduced to a broken prisoner consoling fellow captives. They found a maintenance access panel that led directly into the cell block. Park worked carefully with basic tools to override the simple mechanical lock. Advanced security systems might have stopped them, but the Devourers relied on their reputation and isolation for protection. The detention area was a horror beyond imagination. Dozens of cells contained Federation officers, scientists, and political leaders. All showed signs of torture and forced combat. Neural inhibitor devices were attached to every prisoner, ready to inflict unbearable pain at a moment's notice. King Zolthak, sat in the largest cell, his massive frame hunched in defeat. The proud monarch who had commanded respect throughout the galaxy now looked like a broken animal. Scars covered his scales, and one of his forearms hung useless from untreated wounds. In the cell next to him, Commander Vextar lay unconscious on the floor. The reptilian officer had been returned from the arena covered in blood, both his own and his opponent's. The neural inhibitors still sparked occasionally, sending spasms through his unconscious form. "Your Majesty," Hyunwoo whispered as he worked to override the cell locks. King Zolthak looked up with dull eyes that slowly focused on the human face before him. "Am I dreaming? Or have the Devourers created new torments for my mind?" "Neither, sir. We're here to get you out." The reptilian monarch stared in disbelief as the cell door opened. "You came back for us? After everything Vextar said to your people?" "That's what Marines do," Lee said simply as he began removing the neural inhibitors from the king's body. "We leave no one behind." Tears began flowing from the ancient warrior's amber eyes. "I have been forced to do terrible things, to fight and kill beings who trusted me. The shame will haunt me forever." "That wasn't your choice," Choi said gently as she worked on freeing other prisoners. "The fault lies with those who enslaved you, not with those who were enslaved." They began systematically freeing everyone in the detention block. Federation officers from a dozen different species emerged from their cells, hardly daring to believe rescue was possible. Many were too weak to walk, requiring support from their stronger companions. "How many of you are there?" one freed Zentari captain asked in amazement. "4," Hyunwoo replied. The rescued prisoners looked at each other in shock. 4 humans had infiltrated the most secure facility in Devourer space and were attempting to rescue dozens of captives. "This is impossible," someone muttered. 4 beings cannot fight their way past hundreds of guards. "Watch us," Park said grimly as he finished planting explosive charges throughout the detention area. King Zolthak struggled to his feet, supporting himself against the cell wall. "Captain Kim, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. But how do you plan to escape? This facility is surrounded by their entire fleet." Hyunwoo checked his chronometer. "In exactly 12 minutes, every explosive charge we've planted will detonate simultaneously. The confusion should give us time to reach our ship. And then we find out if an old Earth saying is true. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense." The king managed a weak smile. "Your species continues to surprise me, Captain. Perhaps Vexitar was wrong about human warriors after all." Commander Vexitar stirred as they lifted him from his cell. His eyes opened slowly, trying to focus on the faces around him. When he saw Hyunwoo, confusion mixed with disbelief crossed his features. "The human?" he whispered. "But you should have returned to Federation space. Why did you come here?" "Because someone had to," Hyunwoo replied. "And because Marines don't abandon their allies even when those allies don't think much of Marines." Vextar tried to speak. The first explosion shook the crucible like thunder. Captain Hyunwoo Kim led the group of rescued prisoners through collapsing corridors as his carefully placed charges tore through the arena's support structures. Emergency lights flashed red as organic walls split and mechanical systems sparked. "Move, move, move," Sergeant Daeho Lee shouted over the chaos. He supported King Zolthak on one side while Private Taemin Park helped the wounded monarch on the other. The reptilian king could barely walk after weeks of torture and forced combat. Behind them, dozens of freed Federation prisoners followed as quickly as their injuries allowed. Commander Vextar stumbled along with the group, still weak from his latest arena battle. His amber eyes showed confusion, and something that might have been shame. "The docking bay is 3 levels down," Corporal So Young Choi reported, consulting their hand-drawn map. "But Devourer forces are converging from all directions." More explosions echoed through the facility. The organic walls began bleeding a thick, dark fluid as the living structure went into shock. Mechanical components sparked and failed as the bioelectrical systems overloaded. They reached a main corridor and found it blocked by a squad of Devourer guards. The alien creatures moved on multiple legs, their mechanical arms bristling with energy weapons. But when they fired, their plasma bolts passed harmlessly over the heads of the escaping prisoners. Their targeting systems are calibrated for taller species, Park realized. They can't adjust quickly enough for human-sized targets. Hyunwoo and his Marines opened fire with their projectile weapons. The simple kinetic rounds punched through biomechanical armor that was designed to deflect energy blasts. The Devourer guards fell in seconds, their alien technology useless against old-fashioned bullets. Impossible, one of the rescued Zentari officers breathed. Federation plasma weapons couldn't penetrate their defenses, but your primitive firearms cut through them like paper. Sometimes the old ways work best, Lee said as he reloaded his rifle with practiced efficiency. They continued through the collapsing facility, fighting running battles with Devourer forces that couldn't adapt to their unconventional tactics. The alien guards expected energy weapons, advanced sensors, and predictable Federation military doctrine. Instead, they faced Marines with gunpowder and determination. King Zolthak grew stronger as they moved, his natural resilience helping him recover from the neural torture. "Captain Kim," he said as they paused at another intersection, "I must ask forgiveness for my commander's behavior." Vextar spoke from ignorance and pride. "No apology necessary, Your Majesty," Yunwu replied while checking his remaining ammunition. "We've all learned something today." Commander Vextar overheard the conversation and forced himself to speak. "The captain is generous, but I must bear responsibility for my words. I mocked warriors who are braver than I ever imagined possible." The confession cost him visible effort. Admitting error went against everything in his proud nature, but the circumstances demanded honesty. "We can discuss this later," Choi interrupted. "Right now we need to reach our ship before the entire facility comes down." Another series of explosions rocked the crucible. This time the detonations were larger, indicating that the main structural charges had activated. The artificial gravity began fluctuating as the arena's core systems failed. They reached the docking level and found chaos. Devourer ships were launching frantically, trying to escape the collapsing facility. Their stolen scout vessel sat where they had left it, still reading as a friendly contact to the automated systems. "There," Park pointed toward their ship, 200 meters across the docking bay. But between them and escape stood the largest concentration of Devourer forces they had yet encountered. Dozens of the biomechanical creatures blocked their path, armed with heavy weapons and supported by automated defense turrets. "We'll never make it through that," one of the rescued prisoners said despairingly. King Zolthak straightened to his full height, despite his wounds. "Then we fight as warriors should, together." He picked up a fallen Devourer weapon, testing its alien weight. The other freed prisoners followed his example, arming themselves with captured equipment. Federation officers who had been broken by torture suddenly stood ready to fight beside their human rescuers. "Your Majesty, you're in no condition to fight," Hyunwoo protested. "I have been fighting for weeks," the king replied grimly. "But this time, I fight for freedom instead of alien entertainment." Commander Vextar stepped forward as well, despite his injuries. "My king speaks truly. We have all been humiliated enough. Time to reclaim our honor." The final battle was unlike anything in Federation military history. Human Marines with primitive weapons fought alongside alien officers armed with captured technology. King Zolthak, the most powerful military leader in the galaxy, battled side by side with Captain Kim, a human he would have dismissed as irrelevant just weeks before. The Devourer's advanced weaponry proved useless at close range. Their targeting systems couldn't track the chaotic mixture of energy signatures and kinetic weapons. Their biomechanical forms, designed to absorb plasma damage, were vulnerable to explosive rounds and chemical charges. "Cover the wounded," Lee shouted as he laid down, suppressing fire with his rifle. The mechanical simplicity of his weapon never jammed or overheated, allowing him to maintain steady pressure on the enemy. Vextar found himself fighting back-to-back with Corporal Choi, protecting each other from attackers on multiple sides. The proud Relonian commander who had once mocked human weakness now owed his life to the courage of a young Marine. "You fight well for such a small warrior," he told her during a brief lull in combat. "Size doesn't matter when you're fighting for what's right," Choi replied, reloading her weapon with quick efficiency. The battle raged across the docking bay as more sections of the crucible collapsed around them. Debris rained from the ceiling while emergency systems wailed their warnings. The organic walls were dying, their bioelectrical patterns fading to darkness. Private Park had reached their ship and was desperately trying to activate its systems. The alien vessel responded sluggishly to his mental commands, confused by the chaos around it. "I need more time," he shouted over the noise of combat. King Zolthak saw a group of Devourers moving to flank their position. Despite his wounds, the reptilian monarch charged into their midst with a roar that echoed through the bay. His forearms moved like weapons themselves, striking down enemies with desperate fury, but the effort cost him dearly. Neural damage from weeks of torture made his movements unsteady. A devourer weapon struck him in the side, spinning him around. He fell heavily, struggling to rise. Hyunwoo saw the king go down and fought his way through the battle to reach him. Commander Vextar arrived at the same moment, both warriors protecting their fallen leader. "Leave me," King Zolthak gasped, dark blood flowing from his wound. "Save yourselves and the others." "Not happening, Your Majesty," Hyunwoo said firmly. "Marines don't leave anyone behind. That includes Relonian kings." Vextar looked at the human captain with new understanding. "You would die for a monarch who is not your own? A being whose people showed you no respect? That's what makes us different from them," Hyunwoo replied, gesturing toward the devourers. "We don't abandon people just because they're not like us." Working together, they lifted King Zolthak and carried him toward the ship. The other Marines provided covering fire, while the freed prisoners fought with desperate courage. What had begun as a rescue mission had become something larger, a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they stood together. "Ship systems are online," Park called from the pilot's position. "But we need to go now. The docking bay is losing structural integrity." The remaining Devourer forces made one final assault, trying to prevent their escape. But they were fighting beings who had nothing left to lose. Human determination combined with alien strength proved unstoppable. Sergeant Lee was the last to board, laying down covering fire until the very moment the hatch sealed. "Everyone's aboard," he reported. The stolen ship lurched away from the collapsing docking bay just as massive sections of the crucible tore themselves apart. The organic structure was dying, its biomechanical systems failing in cascade reactions that spread throughout the facility. Through the viewports, they watched as the massive arena complex broke apart. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as vital systems overloaded. Thousands of Devourer ships fled the destruction, their perfect formation scattered by panic. "The crucible is finished," King Zolthak said weakly from where he lay on the ship's deck. "But more importantly, our people are free." Commander Vextar knelt beside his king, his amber eyes showing emotions he had never displayed before. "My lord, I have learned much about courage today. The humans have shown us what honor truly means." He looked up at Hyunwoo with something approaching reverence. "Captain Kim, I was wrong about your species. Size and technology mean nothing compared to courage and determination. The Relonian Empire would be privileged to call humans our allies." "The feeling is mutual, Commander," Hyunwoo replied. "When this war is over, we'll have earned each other's respect the right way, through shared sacrifice." As their ship escaped from Devourer space, carrying dozens of rescued prisoners back, King Zolthak, despite his wounds, addressed the group. "What happened here today will be remembered throughout the galaxy, not just as a rescue mission, but as proof that different species can achieve greatness when they stand together." He looked directly at Hyunwoo. "Captain Kim, your people have shown us that strength comes not from size or technology, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others. When we return to Federation space, I will recommend not just that humans be granted membership, but that they be given a leadership role in the war against the Devourers." Commander Vextar stood slowly, his injuries making movement painful. "I have a confession to make, Captain. When I mocked your people at Nexus Station, I was speaking from fear, not strength. The unknown always frightens those who think they have nothing left to learn." He extended one of his clawed hands toward the human officer. "I hope you can forgive the ignorance of a proud fool who confused arrogance with wisdom." Hyunwoo clasped the offered hand without hesitation. "There's nothing to forgive, Commander. We all have preconceptions. What matters is how we act when we learn better." In the days that followed, as they traveled back to Federation space, the former prisoners shared their stories. They spoke of the horrors they had endured, but also of the moment when 4 humans had risked everything to save beings who had shown them nothing but contempt. The rescued Federation officers trained alongside the Marines, learning tactics that didn't rely on advanced technology. In return, they shared their knowledge of alien weapons and defensive systems. What emerged was a new kind of military doctrine that combined human ingenuity with alien expertise. When they finally reached Nexus Station, news of their rescue mission had already spread throughout Federation space. The impossible had happened. A tiny human force had penetrated the heart of enemy territory and rescued the Federation's most important military leader. Admiral Theknos met them at the docking bay, his tentacled form showing obvious relief. "Captain Kim, what you and your team have accomplished defies all military logic. How did 4 Marines succeed where entire fleets have failed?" "We had advantages the Devourers didn't expect," Hyunwoo replied modestly. "Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones." King Zolthak, supported by medical staff but insisting on walking under his own power, addressed the crowd of alien dignitaries who had gathered to witness their return. "Today marks a new chapter in Federation history," he declared. "We have learned that our greatest strength lies not in our individual capabilities, but in our willingness to fight for each other. The humans have shown us what it means to be true allies." Commander Vextar stood beside his king, his earlier arrogance replaced by humble respect. "I publicly apologize to Captain Kim and all humans for my words of ignorance. You have proven that courage knows no species boundaries." As the celebration continued around them, Hyunwoo looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewports. Somewhere in that vast darkness the Devourers were regrouping, planning their next assault on Federation space. But now they would face a united enemy. Humans and aliens who had learned to fight as one, combining the best of both old and new military traditions. The war was far from over, but for the first time the Federation had hope. The mockery had ended. In its place stood something far more powerful, the Brotherhood. 6 months had passed since the rescue at the Crucible. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the observation deck of the Federation flagship, watching joint training exercises between human and alien forces. What he saw would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. Human Marines worked alongside Rylonian warriors, teaching them infantry tactics that didn't rely on energy weapons. In return, the reptilian soldiers shared their knowledge of heavy assault techniques and advanced battlefield coordination. The two groups that had once viewed each other with suspicion now moved as a unified fighting force. "The integration is proceeding better than we hoped," Ambassador Ji-Hai Park said as she joined him at the viewport. "Both species are learning from each other." On the training field below, Sergeant Dae-Ho Lee was instructing a group of young Rylonian officers in the use of kinetic weapons. The aliens struggled with the unfamiliar technology at first, but their natural strength made them devastating marksmen, once they learned proper technique. "Sir," Corporal So Young Choi approached with a data tablet in her hands. "The latest intelligence reports from the front lines. The joint tactics are working better than anyone expected." Hyunwoo reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. Federation forces using combined human-alien strategies had won 3 major victories against the Devourers in the past month. The enemy's adaptation to traditional Federation military doctrine was useless against opponents who constantly changed their approach. "The Devourers built their entire strategy around countering Federation technology," he observed. "They never considered that we might abandon that technology when it suited our purposes." A commotion near the training field caught their attention. King Zolthak had arrived to observe the exercises, moving slowly but steadily despite his injuries. The reptilian monarch had recovered most of his strength, though he would always bear scars from his captivity. Commander Vexistar walked beside his king, his own wounds healed but his attitude permanently changed. The arrogant officer who had once mocked human warriors was gone, replaced by a leader who understood the value of humility and cooperation. "Captain Kim," King Zolthak called as he approached. "I wanted to personally review the progress of our joint training program." "Your Majesty," Hyunwoo replied with a respectful salute. "The results speak for themselves. Our forces are becoming more effective every day." The king watched as human and Rylonian soldiers worked together on the training field below. 6 months ago I would never have believed such cooperation was possible. Your people have taught us that strength comes from unity, not superiority." Commander Vextar stepped forward, his amber eyes showing the respect that had replaced his former contempt. "Captain, I have news from the Rylonian High Command. The Emperor has officially requested that human military advisors be assigned to all our major fleet operations." This was unprecedented. The Rylonian Empire had never sought military guidance from any other species. Their request showed how completely their attitude toward humanity had changed. "We're honored by the Emperor's confidence," Hyunwoo replied diplomatically. Our Marines will do everything possible to support Rylonian operations. There's more, Vextar continued. The Emperor has also approved the construction of joint bases throughout Rylonian space. Human and Rylonian forces will train together permanently, sharing knowledge and developing new tactics. Ambassador Park smiled at the news. This is exactly what we hoped would come from Federation membership. True partnership between species, not just political cooperation. Private Taimin Park approached the group carrying a technical report. The young Marine had been promoted to specialist after his crucial role in the Crucible rescue. His expertise with alien technology had made him invaluable to the joint training program. Sir, the new communication systems are working perfectly, he reported. Human analog equipment combined with Rylonian biomechanical interfaces gives us communication methods the Devourers can't intercept or jam. The technical innovations emerging from human-alien cooperation were impressive. Each species brought different strengths to the partnership, creating solutions that neither could have developed alone. King Zolthak studied the young specialist with interest. This is the Marine who piloted the Devourer vessel during our rescue? Yes, Your Majesty, Hyunwoo confirmed. Specialist Park's technical skills were essential to the mission's success. I owe you a debt I can never repay, the king said formally to Park. Your courage in connecting with that alien technology saved all our lives. Park looked uncomfortable with the praise, as most Marines did when singled out for recognition. I was just doing my job, sir. We all were. Spoken like a true Marine, Vextar observed with approval. Your species' humility is as impressive as your courage. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Admiral Theknos' voice echoed through the ship's speakers, calling all senior officers to an emergency briefing. In the war room, holographic displays showed the latest intelligence from the front lines. The Devourers had launched a major offensive against 3 Federation colonies simultaneously. The attacks were coordinated with military precision that suggested significant changes in enemy strategy. They're adapting, Admiral Theknos explained to the assembled commanders. Our recent victories have forced them to evolve their tactics. They're using captured Federation technology to enhance their biomechanical weapons. The tactical displays showed Devourer ships that looked different from previous encounters. Energy weapons that pulsed with familiar patterns. Shield configurations that matched Federation defensive systems. They're incorporating technology from the ships they've destroyed, King Zolthak observed grimly. Each victory they achieve makes them stronger. Which means we need to adapt as well, Hyunwoo said. Our advantage came from being unpredictable. If they're learning to counter our new tactics, we need to develop even newer ones. Commander Vextar stood.